Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Weekly Gains Podcast. My name is Clark Gaines, and I want to thank you so much for joining me on episode number 6. Last week, we talked about just getting started and why it's important for us to stop overthinking and overplanning every single detail of our lives. Last week's challenge was to identify one thing in our life that we've been endlessly preparing for and just take that first step. And so what that looked like for me was hopping on sales calls. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. I don't love sales, which is super ironic because I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, and so sales is the only thing that keeps my business going, but it's something that I don't exactly enjoy. I recognize its importance, and so after months and months of dreading hopping on sales calls again, I finally did it. I booked out 4 for last week. I had 1 on Monday, 1 on Wednesday, and then 2 on Thursday. But the one on Monday, it was horrible. I butchered it. It was so bad. I just froze up. I stuttered. We got to the contract and I just didn't exactly know how to navigate that. It was bad. Like if there's a list of top 100 worst sales calls of all time, I made that list. I promise you, it was horrible. But the point is, I got started. And because I got started and because I kind of got the bad call out of the way, and I got my feet wet, and I just took action because I did that on Monday, Wednesday's call was much easier. The 2 on Thursday were way easier. I was way more confident by the time that I got to those other 3 calls. But it's all because I got started. I stopped planning, I stopped beating around the bush, and I just took action. And so this week, it's one thing to start something, but it's a whole nother thing to stay grounded, whether this is in your life or in your business. We're talking about today the importance of staying rooted in what you believe in, your values, the core values of your life. Because if you're not rooted, you're going to get pulled. Now, the best example, I think, of leadership out there, and I admire this man, not because of his coaching necessarily and his accolades, but how he led his team. John Wooden. If you've ever heard that name before, you know exactly who I'm talking about. This is the UCLA head coach, men's basketball head coach back in the day, and he won something like 10 national championships in 12 years. It's insane. Y'all, that does not happen at the collegiate level, really in any sport, but especially in men's basketball. 10 national championships in 12 years. But what John Wooden was really known for was his deep convictions and his principles. He did not waver on what he believed in. And that showed through in his coaching and how he led his team. The first practice, a lot of times, what he would do is they wouldn't go out and, start shooting immediately. They wouldn't start, dribbling, drawing up plays. They wouldn't start, running fast breaks up and down the court or anything like that. What John Wooden would do a lot of times, especially the first practice of the season, is teach his team how to tie their shoes, how to put on their socks, how to put on their shoes and tie them up. Now, that sounds ridiculous. But when you really think about it, what John Wooden was doing was he wasn't teaching them basketball. He's teaching them how to be disciplined, how to be rooted in the things that matter. And John Wooden believed the little things matter. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that before. But the man was grounded in faith and clarity. He was a devout Christian. He didn't chase trends. He knew what he believed in and that he reflected that throughout his team. And the result was he built a dynasty without compromising his faith or his values. Another story that I have, and this one is more personal because it comes from me, is early in business. I started my business, Gaines Productions, really it was 2020, but I didn't launch it till 2021. But at the time, I was really giddy. I was really excited to start this whole videography thing by myself. I was like, man, this is going to be great. I didn't really have any experience running a business. I actually had zero experience running a business. So I didn't have any core values. I didn't have a core mission. I didn't know what clients I wanted to serve. I didn't know what work I wanted to do. And because of all of these things, I started taking on every single job that just paid me money. I mean, really, I would take family pictures. I would do wedding videos. I would do sports videography. That's a lot of fun. But I kept going all over the place. And as a result, I was very inconsistent. My finances were extremely inconsistent. It was a very feast or famine lifestyle for quite some time. I mean, there'd be some months I'd make upwards of $10,000. And then other months I'd make $500, peanuts. And it was this up and down roller coaster, inconsistency, because I was not grounded or rooted. I had no business core values, none. I didn't know what clients I wanted to serve. But over time, I started to realize for me to best serve others, for me to best serve myself and my business, I'm going to have to get clear on who I want to be as a business and as a person. And so I got to a point where I started saying no. This is an episode we talked about, or a topic we talked about in another episode a few weeks ago, is saying no. I started saying no to things that didn't align with my values. And because of that, I got much more clear on who I wanted to be as a businessman, who I wanted to serve. It went from, weddings and, events and birthday parties and all sorts of different things to, what? I really just want to serve local service-based businesses. That's it. So I cut out all this noise and I trimmed the fat. My clarity grew. I understand now who I am as a businessman, but more importantly, who I am not. And now I say no more often. I focus more. I have more peace, more direction, more consistency, all because I planted my roots. I figured out what was important to me in my business, and I stood my ground. Now, there are two examples from the Bible that I want to point out that really illustrate this point and this idea of being rooted in something. The first comes from Jeremiah 17, verses 5 through 8. Jeremiah was a great prophet, and this is what he said. This is what the Lord says. Cursed is the one who trusts in man, who draws strength from mere flesh, and whose heart turns away from the Lord. That person will be like a bush in the wastelands. They will not see prosperity when it comes. They will dwell in the parched places of the desert, in a salt land where no one lives. But blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord and whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when the heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought and never fails to bear fruit. Now, what Jeremiah is doing is he's illustrating a picture for us. And he's basically saying, hey, there's two ways to live. There's two ways to plant your roots in life. He says you can plant your roots in mankind, but essentially what that's doing, it's like planting a tree out in the middle of a desert, in a wasted salt land where there's no nutrients, there's no water, you're not growing, you're not bearing fruit, your leaves are withering, you're dead. But then he paints a picture of what it's like to put your faith and to put your roots in biblical truth and God. He says it's like planting a tree right beside a stream whose roots, they stretch out and practically touch the stream. He says that you're always bearing fruit. Your leaves are always green. And when times of trouble come about, when there's no rain, guess what? You've got a stream of living water that's providing for you. Despite what might be going around, you could have strong winds. But because you're rooted in truth, because you're rooted in the values of God, you will withstand anything. That's a beautiful picture right there for all of you who have put your hope and your faith in Jesus Christ. The second, though, comes from the Sermon on the Mount. If you're familiar with that, you know that it comes from Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew. And so this is sort of Jesus' call to action after his Sermon on the Mount. He says this, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." Jesus is essentially saying the same exact thing as Jeremiah. And so the question becomes, what is your house built on? Because here's the deal. The storms, they're coming either way. Whether you have decided to put your faith in Jesus Christ or not, you will have trouble in this life. I think a lot of people think, oh, just because I'm a Christian, now I will never experience any pain or any suffering again. That's not the case. There are going to be bad things. Bad things happen to good people all the time, Christian or not. But here's the difference. If you have actually put your faith in Jesus Christ, you know this to be true, that you can withstand any storm in life because God provides us a peace beyond all understanding. So, what is your house built on? That is the question of the day. What do you believe in? What are your values? So this week's challenge is pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. It's something you could do, honestly, in about 10 to 20 to 30 minutes, okay? What I want you and myself to do this week is write 5 non-negotiable values, okay? Who do you want to be no matter what? Then ask yourself, does your life reflect this right now, or does it not? If not, realign this week. Course correct. It's okay. We all get off track. We all lose sight of who we are sometimes. This world is loud, and it's constantly pulling us in millions of different directions. There's money, there's opinions, there's pressure, expectations. There's a culture that changes every 10 seconds nonstop. But you and I, we're not meant to just drift through life aimlessly. Root yourself in the things that don't move. Faith, love, conviction, truth. Because if you're not rooted, you will get pulled. But if you are rooted, you're not only going to survive the storm, but you're going to grow through it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. If you have, please drop a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. This has been the Weekly Gains Podcast. My name is Clark Gaines, and I'll see you next Monday.